Our fine city in the background there. Beautiful shot. An event taking place later today to address the rising cost of student loans. We are joined this morning by our local Congressman, Scott Peters. Sir, good morning. Thanks for being with us. All right, before we get to the issue of the student loans, I want to ask a couple of hot topics in Washington. First, are you comfortable, this whole thing with the NSA and the surveillance program, and a lot of people are concerned about balancing privacy concerns with national security. The president came out, basically defended that this is something the country has to do in order to keep its national security in place. What's your take on all of this right now?
Well, you know, it's a little new to me. They obviously passed the Patriot Act back during the Bush administration. They reauthorized the FISA bill just last year. And I'm going to be briefed actually in a confidential briefing when I get back on this. And what we're struggling with is, what's the balance between your personal security and your national security?
Right.
And I think that's a tough balance to draw. So I'm interested in getting into that. I hope I'm able to come talk to you about that some more. But we're very, very concerned about the big brother.
And then officials did come out and say that a lot of what was used in this program saved or perhaps deterred some terrorist activity. Obviously, that can't be shared because of security sensitivity and whatnot, right?
Right. So we want to be convinced that it's working. I think we're going to give up these liberties. We want to make sure that we are really getting more secure as a result of that.
Another big issue, immigration reform. Where do we stand right now on that?
Well, the Senate is hashing out its version of immigration reform. Both the House and the Senate have a Gang of 8, which is a bipartisan group trying to come to something. I don't know. I think it could go a couple ways in the House. We see the Judiciary Committee starting to chop away at it. And yesterday we had a very, very tough experience with the Farm Bill, which is unrelated to this. The Republicans lost 60 votes on their bill. So we have a lot of question about whether, I feel bad for Mr. Boehner.
How did that happen?
I think he's having a hard time keeping his caucus in line, and he's got his own bills he wants to get done, but he doesn't seem to be able to exercise any leverage. So we hope that the Senate comes out with something. I hope we get to vote on the Senate version. I think we'll know that in the coming months.
A lot of stuff going on.
Right.
Also, boy, this week, a couple of really tough days on Wall Street. The Dow, I think, down 2% yesterday, 355 points. Will the House be able to agree on a budget? And how do you see what's happening right now with the stock markets?
Well, you know, we have to come up and do the job that we were elected to do on the budget. I ran on this concept of no budget, no pay. That forced the Senate, which after 4 years finally did its budget. So now we have a House budget, which is a Republican budget, and a Senate budget, which is a Democratic budget. Now we have to negotiate a compromise. That's what we would do. That's what you would do in business, what we would do in local government. But unfortunately, the Republicans won't appoint people to come do that negotiation. And so we're kind of stuck here. But it seems to me we can make some really smart spending cuts. We can balance the budget. We may have some new revenue, but there's ways to do it that aren't the sequester approach, which is this kind of across-the-board cut, which the International Monetary Fund last week said perhaps cut our economic growth by half. We need to get Congress back to work so we can get people back to work. And get the economy moving, and that will take care of a lot of these problems too.
I wanted to talk to you about this, speaking of tough times. You're holding an event today. This is at San Diego Mesa College. We're talking student loans.
Right.
Because we've all heard this week in the news as well about the possibility of the interest rates.
Doubling.
Doubling for kids. It's going to cost a lot more money for young people out there who are trying to get their education. What's going on with this?
Well, this is really disappointing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm supporting 3 different measures to try to fix this. First of all, I'd love to see us extend for 2 years the current rate at about 3%, rather than have it double up to over 6%.
Right.
That would give kids a chance to get back on their feet in a tough economic time. We can't get a vote on that. President Obama, the Republican version, I supported the Republican version just because I thought it might be the only thing we got to vote on. That would have it at about 4% to start and tie it to market rates. I don't love that because it could also go up quite a bit, but at least in the short term it would provide some relief. That passed, but it hasn't passed the Senate, so that's not law either. And President Obama has one that's kind of in the middle. I support that too, allowing some fluctuation within a narrower band, so that families could have some predictability. We can't let this double.
Yeah, the key is we have to do something before that happens. Did you speak with have you spoken with the Speaker of the House about this, Mr. Boehner? About getting the Student Loan Relief Act?
Yeah. We've signed on to something called a discharge petition, which we could get enough signatures on it would force it to come to the floor. I've talked to everyone I can about signing this discharge petition. We don't have enough signatures to do that. But how is it in a world that we know we have to compete in a global economy, we have to compete on our brain power, we would be making it harder for kids to go to college, to intimidate them with this debt. And a lot of them are not going to school or are scared to, or are dropping out or scared to go to school because they're fearful of this debt.
Based on that question, taking it from what you just said, your message to families, to students who are out there, they're having trouble affording college,
Right.
they hear this about doubling interest rates, and they, quite frankly, as with most everything else, they're tired of the bickering from both sides of Washington,
Right.
budget here, budget there, I agree with this one, then it's that one, it's a... What do you say to those folks that all they want to do is go to work, live their lives, send their kids to school without having to pay exorbitant amounts of money?
Well, what I've heard from my constituents
Yeah.
is go to Washington and try to work with everybody else, and that's all I've done. I've tried to work across the aisle in a bipartisan way through organizations, through personal relationships. I just would encourage that. Let's try to do that. Let's try to continue to send that message. It won't change overnight. I think a lot of the freshmen have that attitude.
Right.
We have a lot of folks who've been there for a while are still bitter. A lot of folks don't want to see President Obama get any win. If it's perceived as a win to President Obama, they just won't support it. I can just tell you that's what I'm working on. I've been there 5 months. We've seen some progress. Not a lot, and certainly not enough.
Yeah.
But on this issue, just be in touch with people. Let them know you want them to sit down and negotiate a compromise, and send a message particular to the speaker and to your senators.
Congressman Scott Peters, we thank you for your time.
Thanks, bro.
We'll be back and updating.
Great to be back in San Diego, I'll tell you.
Appreciate it. All right, Shally, over to you.
All right, gentlemen, thanks. Mayor Bob Phil.